Chapter 16. About an hour later, Ning followed behind Luo Jianyang as they walked out of the warehouse. She had planned to say goodbye after he locked the door, but to her surprise, Luo Jianyang spoke first. Are you free tonight? It felt like fireworks exploded in Ning's mind, dizzying, dazzling, and utterly surreal. Seeing the stunned look on her face, Luo Jianyang realized his words might have led to a misunderstanding. He gave a slight cough and clarified, what I meant was, you've helped me for quite a while. I should treat you to dinner to show my appreciation. Ning quickly waved her hand. This is just part of my job. Besides, I have something important to attend to tonight, so, she lowered her head, fingers clenched tightly, barely restraining her inner scream. Oh my god, he wants to reward me, Luo Jianyang wants to treat me, but tonight, she had promised to celebrate the orphanage director's birthday. Even if it weren't the director's birthday, she would never allow Luo Jianyang to treat her to dinner. She wanted to keep her relationship with him strictly professional, idle and employee, pure and simple, because if that boundary were ever crossed, she feared she might not be able to resist, falling for more than just his charm. A trace of disappointment passed through Luo Jianyang's eyes, but he offered a soft smile. All right then, I'll make it up to you sometime. Back at her desk, Ning was still a little dazed by his words before they parted. Is Luo Jianyang always this considerate? He even treats employees to dinner just for helping out? Wasn't she just doing her job? He paid her a salary. Wasn't that the basic premise of their working relationship? Ning found it odd, but she didn't dwell on it. She simply thought of him as a down-to-earth boss and refocused on learning and advancing her responsibilities. Ji Qing's injury near her eye still needed time to heal. Until she recovered, her public appearances were on hold. During that period, Ning didn't see Luo Jianyang around the office. Her colleagues mentioned he had gone to film a project. She, too, was swamped with preparations for Ji Qing's return to work. With barely any free time to think about Luo Jianyang, she often fell asleep the moment she hit the bed. Her social media remained quiet, save for a single update, a photo with the orphanage director. No other trace of her life appeared. A week later, Ning and Ji Qing officially returned to the work grind. At the same time, old gossip about her and Fu Qinghe briefly resurfaced on trending searches. But Ning paid it no attention. She had no time to waste on the past. Once work picked up, Ning moved like a spinning top, non-stop. Even her internal clock adjusted to Ji Qing's schedule. Sometimes, even after Ji Qing had fallen asleep, Ning was still up, hunched over her phone, coordinating outfits and managing the smallest details. She wasn't just Ji Qing's agent, she doubled as her assistant. The workload was far heavier than her previous job testing sleep products, but Ning felt fulfilled. Every day she grew sharper, more capable, more in control. Over a month passed in this whirlwind of work. Eventually, Ji Qing was granted a one-week break, and as her agent, Ning also got to rest, vicariously. Returning home, Ning collapsed onto her long-missed bed. Just as she was about to drift into a long-awaited sleep, a sudden thought jolted her awake. Her car, she still hadn't picked it up from the dealership. Not only that, it was also time to visit the children in the remote mountain village. Dragging her exhausted body upright, Ning sighed. So what if she missed a day of rest she had promised the children? She couldn't let them think she'd gone back on her word. Barely half an hour after coming home, Ning took a quick shower, changed into comfortable sportswear, and once again, stepped out the door. Chapter 17. After purchasing some clothes and school supplies at the mall, Ning contacted the school principal and set off by car. Fortunately, she had left early enough and estimated she could arrive before 10 p.m. Any later, and she'd have been forced to spend a night on the road. The journey to the mountainous area began smoothly. After all, Ning had made the trip more than once or twice. But once she actually entered the mountain region, things became far less predictable. In late autumn, the mountains were often drenched in rain. With limited infrastructure and barely any paved roads, the dirt paths turned into muddy, impassable trails under the downpour, making it nearly impossible for a car to pass. Ning started to grow anxious. Even under good conditions, it usually took 3 hours to drive into the mountains. Now, with night falling and the road worsening by the minute, she feared she wouldn't make it in tonight. Just as she was at a loss, a cluster of three-wheeled vehicles appeared in the distance. Headlights pierced the darkness, pushing it back with gentle warmth and steady progress. That light, simple as it was, streamed straight into Ning's heart, forming a current of warmth that wrapped gently around her chest. And when she saw who was leading the group at the front, her heart seemed to skip a beat. Excitement surged through her like a rising tide, pulsing in her veins and refusing to settle. A tall figure stepped down from a three-wheeler and strode toward her. Luo Jianyang's face appeared at her window, handsome and composed, with a gentle smile playing at his lips and a gleam of delight flickering in his eyes. He tapped lightly on the window with his long fingers and said, "It really is you." Ning was a little slow to respond. She rolled the window down, stunned. "What are you doing here?" A trace of mystery danced in Luo Jianyang's smile. He straightened up slightly and slipped his hands into his pockets. The divine, almost cinematic aura he once held in Ning's eyes had faded. At this moment, he was simply a warm, real man, and every inch of him radiated a quiet magnetism that made her heart race. "I'll explain later," he said. "Let's get you into the mountains first." With Luo Jianyang and a few other young men there to help, they carefully transferred the supplies Ning had brought for the children into the three-wheeled carts, lightening the load so her car could move more easily. Once everything was packed, Ning was just about to return to her car when Luo Jianyang called out again. "It's already late, and you've been driving all day. Why don't you let my assistant take the wheel from here?" Ning blinked in surprise. "Your assistant? Luo Xinglan?" Luo Jianyang chuckled, a hint of teasing in his tone. "She's just a stand-in. My regular assistant had some family matters recently." As he spoke, his assistant stepped forward confidently, giving Ning a reassuring thumbs up. "You can trust me, sister-in. I drive like a pro. Your car's in good hands." and Ning didn't doubt it. She handed over the keys without hesitation and was just about to climb into another vehicle when Luo Jianyang stopped her again. Why don't you ride with me in the three-wheeler instead? It'll be faster. And Ning froze mid-step, 1,000 question marks fluttering through her mind like pop-up banners. What does he mean by that? Seeing that she hadn't responded, Luo Jianyang didn't press. A flicker of awkwardness passed across his handsome face, and he gave a soft, almost sheepish smile. Well, the three-wheeler's faster, but it's a bit bumpy. If you ride with me, I'm afraid, then I'll trouble you to take me. Before he could finish, Ning turned to face him, cutting him off gently. Her eyes met his, shining like stars in the twilight, bright, with a hint of shy sparkle. Luo Jianyang was stunned for a few seconds. Then his gaze softened into a smile, his eyes dark as ink yet reflecting the starlight, mirroring the emotion in hers. Chapter 18. The bumpy ride made Ning feel as though all her internal organs were about to bounce right up through her throat, but not once did she feel the urge to complain. Her gaze lingered quietly on Luo Jianyang's tall, upright back, drawn to the clean, steady aura he carried with him. Something gentle and unfamiliar was quietly sprouting in her heart. She felt as if Luo Jianyang was gradually stepping down from that dazzling pedestal of perfection, finally coming within reach. Around 10:40 p.m., Ning arrived at the school nestled deep in the mountains. Although it was long past bedtime, all the children had gathered with the principal to wait for her. The moment they saw her, they surged forward like a tide, surrounding her in an excited frenzy. Ning crouched down and picked up a little girl with big eyes and twin braids. She touched her forehead gently to the child's and smiled. Little crybaby, you look so pretty today. Who braided your hair for you? The girl shyly raised her hand and pointed toward Luo Jianyang, who was unloading supplies from a three-wheeler. In a soft, sticky sweet voice, she said, it was that handsome big brother. He was really gentle. Ning couldn't help but laugh. Holding the girl in her arms, she turned to glance at Luo Jianyang, and a subtle emotion flickered through her eyes. She teased the girl, you like him that much after just one day? Not at all. A tall, buzz-cut boy in the crowd piped up, voice clear and full of spirit. Back when I was still in 3rd grade, the handsome big brother already came here to volunteer as a teacher. He probably got busy the past few years, so he couldn't come back, but every year, he still sent us things. This year he came in person, and we're all so happy. Then, the buzz-cut boy suddenly burst into giggles, lowering his voice conspiratorially, especially Arya. She started drooling the moment she saw him. The little girl in Ning's arms was Arya, clearly the subject of this teasing. She puffed up in protest, glaring at the boy. You're so annoying. I'm never eating the potatoes you give me again. And Ning burst into laughter at their innocent bickering. She played mediator between the two, watching fondly as they shook hands and made peace. After spending a little more time with the children, she joined the principal in escorting them back to the dorms for the night. They tiptoed out softly after the children were tucked in. The principal was just about to lead Ning to dinner when a tall figure approached quickly, carrying a thermos flask. Ning and the principal paused. Luo Jianyang came to stand in front of Ning and offered her the flask. His voice was gentle, like warm water in the cold mountain night. The flask is clean, and the water's just the right temperature. It gets pretty chilly up here at night. Have some hot water to warm up. The principal's expression shifted slightly, something knowing flashing in his eyes. After all, he wasn't young. Sensing it was better to give them space, he said tactfully, I'll go check if the food's ready. I'll come get you once it is. Once the principal had left, Ning finally took the thermos. She kept her head down, her cheeks slightly warm. Thank you, she murmured. A soft ripple stirred in Luo Jianyang's eyes. His voice flowed gently through the quiet evening. Back when I was teaching here, the kids used to talk about you. I never thought you were that Ning. I assumed it was just someone with the same name. Ning's fingers tightened ever so slightly around the flask. Her gaze flickered, and a small smile tugged at her lips. I didn't think I'd meet you here, either. Let alone that we'd both be supporting the same group of left-behind children in this remote mountain area. She paused for a moment, then added, aren't you supposed to be filming? What brings you here? Chapter 19. Luo Jianyang was slightly surprised that Ning knew his whereabouts. But the next second, something seemed to flash through his mind, and his smile deepened with an unreadable undertone. I was just doing a guest appearance. My role is minor. He paused for a beat, then looked at her with a teasing glint in his eyes. Do you guys talk about me often? Ning's eyes widened. Her guilty conscience made her expression look more than a little flustered. Talk about you? I almost made you my personal human-sized plushie to cuddle in bed. She forced a few awkward laughs. It came up that day, and someone mentioned you were filming not long ago. We don't usually gossip or anything. Finishing her sentence, Ning grew even more self-conscious and quickly took a sip of water, avoiding his gaze. A light chuckle sounded above her head. Luo Jianyang asked softly, really? Ning, for some reason, she suddenly had the sinking feeling that Luo Jianyang knew she confessed about him in her friend circle. Could it be that the mysterious had somehow pieced everything together and figured out that the male idol she mentioned was Luo Jianyang? But wait, that couldn't be right. Barely posted anything on social media. Their most recent update was a scenic photo from half a year ago. They gave off the vibe of someone mature and wise, detached from worldly noise, a real elite type who's seen it all. How could someone like that be into gossip? As Ning nervously gripped her thermos, eyes darting and drinking water like her life depended on it, Luo Jianyang stopped teasing her. Instead, he gently changed the subject. Coming all the way here alone. Don't your parents worry about you? The smile instantly vanished from Ning's face. Her bright eyes dimmed, shadowed by sudden sorrow. My parents passed away when I was 6. I grew up in an orphanage. Luo Jianyang froze, his eyes wide with stunned disbelief. Something exploded in his chest with a heavy thud, making it hard to breathe. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to offend. I saw a photo on your moments where you were celebrating your mom's birthday, so I thought. He stopped mid-sentence. Realizing Realizing what he just blurted out in the heat of the moment, Luo Jianyang pressed his lips together, clearly shaken. And Ning snapped out of her somber state, staring in stunned disbelief at Luo Jianyang, whose cheeks were slowly turning red as he looked away, like an awkward teenage boy caught in the act. And Ning gasped, "So, you're the period? The contact I left wasn't for some mysterious recruiter, it was you?" Luo Jianyang nodded faintly, his lashes trembling slightly. Then he gave a soft hum through his nose. God, he was such an idiot. And Ning felt like she needed to press her pressure points to stop herself from passing out right there. "Someone please open up a hole in the ground and let me crawl into it. Aw, this is mortifying." And Ning was completely at a loss. She didn't even know how to react. Her cheeks were burning like they were on fire. Just as the two stood frozen in mutual embarrassment, the principal reappeared, and Ning looked as if she'd just spotted her savior. The moment the principal showed up, she hurried toward him at a near sprint. Left standing alone, Luo Jianyang let out a long sigh. He reached up to rub the back of his neck, clearly frustrated. From the moment he'd truly seen in Ning, he'd known she was the one he'd been looking for all this time. That instant when his heart seemed to skip a beat, when his blood rushed and roared in his ears, that was a feeling Luo Jianyang had never experienced before. He was certain of it. This was what love felt like. To put it in a painfully sentimental way, she was his soulmate.